Hello and welcome to Shikanime. My name is Lauren and today I am going to be looking at a video about Cyberpunk. It's been a minute since I've revisited the world of Cyberpunk. It did make me sob many times when I was watching it. So this one is called The Power of Tragedy in Cyberpunk Edgerunners. It is by by channel Sarcastic Chorus. So I'm excited to get into this. It did make me cry. It did make me feel a certain way. So like that is something I will give to Cyberpunk. Like I definitely felt my feelings. Like I feel like 5 of the 10 thumbnails are me just sobbing. Like that's how it went. It was really bad. I mean, I liked the show a lot, but it did hurt me emotionally. So I'm gonna learn about why that's a good thing today. I mean, I kind of have a vague idea about why, but I'm learning for realsies. So here we go. The power of tragedy. Let's see if this makes me feel too. Makes me dredge up all those feelings.
Was it worth it? Yes, it was. Now, I love tragedies. The emotional damage is permanent, plus having a song that's guaranteed to make at least 3 people cry is always fun to abuse. Really though, Cyberpunk Edgerunner is easily one of my favorite shows of this year. The dazzling animation, fun characters, and even cooler action scenes almost makes you forget the type of story you're in. As beneath all the blood and bops, this is a story about people just trying to do their best in a world truly stacked against them. About craving connections in a digital world, it's about a young street punk trying to convince himself that he's special, and the mysterious waifu that dreamt of going to the moon. This is a story of David and Lucy and how they doomed each other. Even when all they wanted.
Interesting. They doomed each other. How did he doom her? Like, I can kind of see. It was not really her fault. She brought him into that world. But, like, he did make his own choices there that ended, again, there are going to be spoilers in this video, obviously, but, like, it ended, like, his choices ended with him dying and her being alone. So, like, I don't see how. I guess he'll tell me. He'll tell me how they doomed each other here. But I will say, when I went into this show the first time, I did not know what to expect. I had no idea what I was getting into at all. Zero clue.
Was to be saved. Taking place in Elon Musk's wet dream, Cyberpunk Edgerunner is a dystopian hellscape where cybernetics have become the standard, flesh and blood has been replaced by chrome and 5G. People are forced to enhance themselves just to stay competitive with their peers. Even as upward mobility is pretty much dead. You're either born into money or serve as a cog in someone else's machine. Near the bottom of this ladder is David. Raised by a single mother who dreamt of him going corporate and having a better life, she worked herself to the bone so that her son could attend a rich private school, where David is forced to deal with stuck-up rich kids who treat him like dirt, but doesn't really have any dreams of his own, choosing instead to just go along with what his mother wants, even trying to jailbreak tech to avoid overpriced mandatory upgrades. Then his whole world falls apart, when a random shootout gets him and his mom into a car crash, where privatized healthcare fucks him harder than it already was, by ignoring him and his mother, to only instead treat their paying customers, despite his mom working for said company. With his mom dead, bills piling up, and a spinal implant his mom swiped from her job, David's rock bottom life keeps taking L's, till he finally decides to say fuck it, installing the Sandevistan into his body, where David gets access to bullet time, using it to beat the shit out of his bully before dropping out of school. Having achieved his revenge and successfully ruined his future, David meets a petty thief named Lucy, and from there, his entire life changes. So after catching her trying to steal,
I wasn't expecting like the full-on recap, but like I'm not mad about it. It's like, oh yeah, it's been a minute since I watched this show, but it really stuck with me apparently, because I remember like none of this is. Sometimes I forget stuff, like if it's been a while since I've watched a thing, as everyone who's been following my Overlord videos will know. Sometimes I'm like, it's been 4 months since I've seen, and this episode I don't remember anything that happened in season 2, but this I like remember pretty much everything. Good storytelling, I guess.
steal from him. They end up working together to steal from the rich and give to themselves, with David
Yeah.
finally starting to suffer the consequences of his actions. Turns out being able to move at super speed is wreaking havoc on his body. David himself has a shocking resistance to implants. If a regular person tried to use the Sandevistan, they could easily die or suffer worse, cyberpsychosis. A condition where your brain essentially burns itself out from handling all these different implants, with the end result being a murderous insanity as the victim steadily loses their grip on reality. Then he gets adopted into a gang, and it's all downhill from here. Now, just to skip right to the ship, Lucy and David work for a lot of reasons, but chemistry is not one of them. There are a ton
That's fair.
of way less believable couples in fiction. And what I mean is, them together, them hanging out, their dynamic is not the highlight of their relationship. Some couples you see meet, and they are just their best selves when they're in the same room together. This
Yeah, like, I will say he's not wrong about those two not having very much chemistry. Like, they're both a little bit too internal. Like, neither, like, if someone is going to be incredibly introverted or, like, just so, like, so many walls up, you kind of, for the chemistry to really, really work in fiction, you really need somebody to be an extrovert, somebody who's willing to, like, break down those walls and push all of the buttons and, like, make the other person feel vulnerable. And, like, they do have vulnerable moments together in this show, but, like, you needed someone like Rebecca, you know, someone who's, like, really exuberant and just, like, absolutely loving every moment of the life. The only time we see Lucy, like, really smiling is when she's in her moon fantasy, or when they are doing that, like, ambulance breakout, you know? It's like, you need somebody who's, like, willing to, like, break down those barriers as much as possible. Because, like, they're just too, both of them are just too insular, essentially, to really have the chemistry that works. But I shipped them so hard. So he is super not wrong about this working, even though the reason isn't chemistry.
This is not them. However, Cyberpunk is so totally able to sell me on this ship because it is able to perfectly capture moments. To create scenes that, through the visuals and music, they just completely capture the essence of what it is like to fall in love, to feel intimacy, to feel heartbreak and grief. Everything about them, from an execution standpoint, is phenomenal. As at first, Lucy just kind of has manic pixie dream girl energy. David would catch glimpses of this white-haired hottie, then when they finally meet, she whisks him away to a whole new world of wonders and crime, giving the guy something to do with his life after bumming around after realizing he has no direction. She is basically his North Star, the one person who was able to guide him through all this crazy. With the moment you just know how bad David is in love with Lucy is their ER escape, where after abusing his powers all day, David passes out, his doctor tries to rob him, and Lucy rescues him, guiding his hospital bed down the highway.
Yeah.
The music is blasting,
That
they're
was a cool
dodging
scene.
cars, but David doesn't register any of it. He's just enraptured by this person, by Lucy, by her beauty, to see her smile after a day of only seeing the cold professional. David finally gets a peek behind the facade and is so totally and utterly down bad for her. By the end of it, he's passed out, thrown up all over himself from nearly dying. But this is special, with the whole ass next scene permanently ruining my playlist for the next couple months, as after taking David to the doctor, Lucy invites David up to her place.
I will say, the soundtrack in Cyberpunk is so freaking killer. It is so good. I adored the music in Cyberpunk. And there was a lot of times throughout the entire series where I was just like, this is a great song. The scene that it's paired with. And it was often a weird juxtaposition, which I do appreciate. I kind of love it when there is, like, a very odd song choice, but it, like, still works. But, like, Istanbul, Not Constantinople, for instance, being played over that scene in Umbrella Academy where Five is just wrecking those guys at the diner. And, like, I feel like a lot of the time you get this, like, if you have a song like that over something that's super violent, or something like an upbeat, happy song over something that's really distressing and sad, it really helps that moment stick in your mind. Which I think that, which Cyberpunk does really, really well.
Where David just being adorable as he tries to play it cool.
Yeah, he
It's really
did.
part of his charm, as despite growing up
sucked
poor,
very hard
he's
at
still
it.
a slightly sheltered prep school kid. He doesn't want anyone to know that, so he keeps trying to act tough and pretend that he's way more experienced than he actually is. Only for that facade to immediately go away, as he gets flustered when he walks into Lucy's place and starts coughing when he drinks a slightly carbonated alcoholic drink. His inexperience is betraying him, and Lucy is having a ball teasing him over it.
Yeah, she
Then we
is.
start talking about dreams.
But this whole scene too, from what I recall, a lot of that, like the teasy, like a lot of that seemed to kind of go away a little bit once he actually joined the gang, because like this whole time she was still playing him essentially because she wanted the Sandevistan. Like they were going to do, because the Maine was supposed to get the Sandevistan. So she's still kind of playing him, and so she's still playing a part for a lot of this scene. I think the first time that she's like really real with him is the dream talk when she's talking about the moon. Like she like is being totally serious with that. And I think she was having fun in the ambulance chase scene too. But I think the first time she's really truly real with him is when they're talking about the dreams.
More importantly, David's lack of them. See, a recurring problem of David throughout this series is that he really doesn't have any dream of his own. He doesn't have any goals or ambitions. Everything that he does is either following the orders of someone else or acting out of obligation for one of his many dead parental figures. David's mom wanted him to join a corporation and have a better life, so he went along with it. His about to be father figure Maine wanted to make it big in Night City, so after his death, David would replace most of his body with chrome and try to fulfill it. David's life is spent perpetually following the desires of others, but not really looking for his own. This is one of the big contrasts between him and Lucy, who already has her own. She dreams of going to the moon, to go over that rainbow and escape all of her problems, which very much makes sense for her. As we will later find out, she's a child soldier of Arasaka, who was raised to believe in the company, to follow their orders, and to risk her life as a disposable hacker for their benefit. She knows the trap of living for someone else's dream, to devalue yourself in pursuit of it, especially when it's not your own. This is why having your own dream is so important to Lucy. Even if it's unachievable, it only helps them get through the day. It's motivation that is uniquely theirs. Lucy's dream of the moon is a dream of freedom from the dystopian hell that she lives in. Even if she knows that the moon isn't some paradise, it's still an escape, one she treasures dearly and chooses to share with David. Now this is the sequence that permanently etched "I Want to Stay at Your House" into my brain, as we see the two enter a simulation to experience walking around on the moon. And then with the music playing, you're pretty much in love. As while the highway scene is David falling in love, the vibe of this scene is hope and intimacy. We see them escape from the crowded, hopeless streets of Night City to the moon, where suddenly anything feels possible. They can go anywhere. They can just relax and have fun as the pressure from just existing is taken off their shoulders. David, this whole time, is wondering, how do I make this more? Looking for a sign that maybe Lucy feels the same way that he does. Staring at her hand, debating whether or not to take it before she grabs him and pulls him along for another big leap. To, and this is a very Japanese concept, an indirect kiss, where his mouth touches something her mouth touched, and that's just viewed as significant and not backwash. It's all beautiful, and he's in love, you're in love, Lucy is opening up. It is all a lie, though.
You fell over the edge, punk.
So shocker, Lucy was just stalling David so that her friends could jump him. Everything from her inviting him to her place was a ploy to trap him. Nothing they talked about or experienced was a lie. Lucy's dream is still to go to the moon, and the moments she shared with David were still genuine, but it does highlight Lucy's more manipulative nature and David's gullibility.
I think that was the moment that made me really, really like Lucy, not gonna lie. Like, ultimately in the end, I was like, you know what, that's very funny. Like, I think at the time, I was like, no, Lucy, why? But then also, it did kind of make me be like, I kind of love it. I love a manipulative character. Like, especially if there's like good reasons for the manipulation. Or if they have other qualities that make me, like, I don't like just a purely manipulative character. Like a character like Littlefinger in Game of Thrones is just manipulative for the sake of like gaining himself power over other people. That's not where Lucy was at, you know? So like she's manipulative for herself, of course, because why else? But her motives are a little more pure than just power, especially power over other people, which is not what her goal is. Her goal is more like power over her own life to do what she wants to do, and like freedom. So I like that. I can get behind that kind of manipulation.
That's when they first met. Lucy used his virgin status to seduce him, then fuck him over. So for her to do the same trick twice isn't really that surprising in hindsight. David is able to talk them out of ripping out his spine. Yeah, FYI, David's mom looted tech off the corpses she picked up on her emergency response job to help pay for her son's schooling. But David is alive, wearing the stuff that she already sold, and ends up joining the gang instead. And the guy's just a little bit betrayed, which, fair. But then we just go into a quick crash course into Edgerunner lifestyle, which is just GTA. And David realizes he actually likes this new life. As compared to the stuck-up school begging for him to come back, David is drawn in by the actual sense of community he feels with these guys. He's not going to be some cog in a machine. This is his crew, and they look after each other. Just like David is looking at Lucy as this guy with long arms hits on her, which bums him out. Then they start dating. Yeah, very quick turnaround. David is low-key adopted by Maine, the main leader of the group, who just automatically assumes that Lucy and David have a thing, convincing David that he might actually have a shot here. So between them going on walks together, chats, and at one time David nearly killed a homeless guy for her.
He tried.
David got the honor of driving her back home after the doctors, where afterwards he asked if they can talk, where Lucy reveals she didn't lie about anything, that she felt something too, but doesn't really want to get involved because she knows that in Night City, Edgerunners are defined more by their early deaths than their lives, and she doesn't want David to end up like that, especially with his tendency to throw himself into dangerous situations to save people. However, David isn't giving up and promises to take Lucy to the moon, for them to go together one.
That's fair. That is fair. Like, I had not really considered that is something that he does throughout the entire show. Because I remember, like, at the end when he, like, puts on the cyber skeleton or whatever it was called, and I was, like, sobbing the whole time. Because I was like, no, don't! You give it a second. Give her a moment. Like, you don't even know she's in actual danger. What are you doing? Like, it was it was bad. But he does, watching this, I'm like, oh yeah, he did have a habit of recklessly launching himself into dangerous situations for other people, specifically Lucy. So that is fair. That was well established. Thank you for pointing that out to me.
One day. Love it. So many death flags, though. So nothing subtle about this here. Their relationship took off, so did the Rockets. Them being on the moon as they start kissing is referencing their promise, the first magical night and the dream of escaping all their problems. In reality, living in this city on Earth is hell. But from a distance, all those problems become small and they can actually enjoy the beauty of the planet. Do love how in hindsight you realize Lucy's tick of grabbing the back of her head when she's stressed is a reference to the deep dive port Arasaka installed so that she could work for them, a constant reminder of her past and a fear of going back. But now, she has David, and suddenly she isn't alone anymore. Because while she does have friends in the gang, she always kept them at arm's distance. She likes them, but is scared of getting too close as she fears that she's just gonna have to run away someday. This makes their relationship special and makes her go to violent extremes to protect him. See, when David got kidnapped by a gore producer, who starts torturing David with the idea of going cyber psycho, Lucy is just in full kill mode and very determined to get him back. This experience with a flamboyant psycho has some very negative, long-lasting consequences for David, as JK picks at David's naivete that he's somehow exempt from going cyber psycho, and that his ability to easily use the Sandevis stand isn't a guarantee. In his own words, David will eventually either go crazy or meet a violent end, a fate JK is more than happy proving with his own death, throwing David one last smile as he bleeds out, delighted that his death vindicates his own worldview, providing a dark warning for David about his potential future. And then after that, everything goes to shit. The rich guy they kidnapped complicates everything. Maine is rapidly deteriorating into psychosis.
I mean, that was the first time I think I cried, was with Maine.
A consequence of both the high-stress environment and refusing to cut back on his own augmentations, he ends up attacking the original hacker and puts Lucy in a spot where she has to be the one to dive into the rich guy's head to steal the data. A problem made very difficult for her since he is an Arasaka executive, meaning she is putting herself into serious danger, as if there's any tracking data or traps left in his head, they could potentially identify her as a former asset. Not to mention just pure fear, so Lucy asks Dave to tell her that she can do this. He does. Then she starts diving into the guy's head, who wakes up and starts trying to talk David into sparing his life.
What the fuck was that?
It does not go well, but Lucy does discover the big secret project they're being paid to discover, and it actually involves David, as his high resistance to cyberware put him on Arasaka's radar as a potential test subject for their new product. But
Yes.
they
I
have more
remember
pressing
this.
matters to deal with, as the old
This I remember thinking was going to be a much bigger part than it actually, like, it came back a few times, but I definitely remembered thinking that it would be huge. And that it wasn't, and then he died.
dude dying has his healthcare provider swooping in to pick up the body, alerting the cops as well, and turning the entire apartment into a firefight, on top of Maine finally snapping after his girlfriend got gunned down. The whole situation is a clusterfuck. Lucy begs Dave to leave with her as it is their best chance of surviving. Maine and Dorio are getting swarmed with no end of mooks in sight. On top of all that, Lucy now knows what Arasaka will do to either of them if they get caught. But Hiro got a hero, and he really wishes she would tell him that she believes in him too. Which she does, but this is a no-hope situation. Maine has an explosive burial for his girl, killing himself, the SWAT team, and traumatizes the fuck out of David. So after the quick time jump, Lucy and David...
Yeah, this confused the hell out of me when it first happened. I was like, oh my god, where did all that come from? I did have to have people explain, like, to me that how much of a time jump actually happened, because I was very nonplussed.
His relationship is a bit mangled by the whole incident. David, on account of Maine dying and taking over his crew, has started to heavily augment himself, going from tiny and weak to Kamina, desperately trying to carry on Maine's dream of making him big, all the while trying to cope by believing himself to be special, that he truly is immune to cyberpsychosis, that JK was wrong, and that he'll make it through it. But you can tell that he doesn't really believe that. He knows that he's running on borrowed time, but is pushing through in spite of that, as he just doesn't know what else to do. Just like he can't figure out what to do with Lucy, as the two are living together now, but she's refusing to go on any jobs, lying that she's still shaken up by the Maine incident, when really she's been hunting down anyone trying to piece together the data she scrambled about David, as she lied about finding the data, claiming that there was none to be found, when really she scrambled the whole thing to hide David's identity, to keep him from becoming a target just like her. But not telling him any of this have left the two in a very strained position. Like, she ends up revealing her past to David, how she was raised as a disposable Arasaka hacker who escaped, and they're both trying to make it work, but they're both spiraling. And the lack of communication over what's really going on is making it even worse, with things somehow getting worse, as Dave begins to show early signs of cyberpsychosis, with him freezing up in fights and accidentally killing a civilian, not to mention strangling his doctor. The dude is not okay, but refuses to stop. And all
That bugged me too. I was like, but I also understood when I was watching it, like, why he felt he couldn't stop. But this is also, I think, at the point where I started getting even more annoyed with him, that he just wouldn't find something that he wanted for himself. Like, that was the main takeaway I had, I think, from that whole series, was that, like, you can't live just for other people. You have to live for you. You do. You cannot live your entire life based on what other people want for you. Which, David did not do, and it killed him in the end. That and his, again, recklessness, which I'd kind of forgotten about. It was more like his attempts to help Lucy get her dream. Like, it felt to me like he was doing it solely so she could get to the moon. Like, so she could live her dream. Like, because he never found something that he wanted for himself. Like, he was just living vicariously through what she wanted. So.
All of this, Lucy seeing all these signs and just not being able to help, causes the two to break up, as she pleaded with him to slow down, to actually take care of himself instead of running himself into the ground, but he won't. And she can't stay to convince him, as she has to run off to go kill the next hacker that's trying to figure out who David is. All of Lucy's attempts to save him end up dooming him instead, as she ends up getting ambushed and held hostage, which kicks off the finale of the show.
Okay, I forgot about that part. I remember a lot of the show, but I did forget that, like, I guess I just didn't piece it together necessarily, that her attempts to save him are actually what got him caught.
And David's death. This is another example of a situation that could have easily been solved if the two had had a 2-minute conversation. Convenient miscommunication for the plot. But I don't mind it too much, though. Lucy's issues with Arasaka made her paranoid about having anything to do with them, so if they were to potentially go after David, she would absolutely go to extremes to protect him. Just like.
And honestly, here, like, it could have been solved in a 2-minute conversation, but it did not bug me as much as it does in, like, every rom-com ever. Because here, it's like, the characters are so established as, like, she doesn't trust the company, she's so closed off, and he's closed off, and they're both trying to protect each other so much that, like, it makes sense that they are not going to have this difficult conversation. And that kind of, like, when it makes sense for this miscommunication to happen, I'm totally on board with it. And, like, it doesn't make me mad.
Like how she would keep the secret knowing David's hero complex, as telling him about this would make him either ask her to stop or try and help her, creating a situation where David is either outed as a potential test subject to be hunted down, or one where David puts himself on their radar by trying to help. This whole sitch is built on miscommunication, but it's very in line with their characters. And not to mention makes you yearn for one thing to have gone differently once all of this is over. So David gets lured into a trap, already on edge, going crazy as he's tricked into wearing the special project Arasaka has been thirsting to have him fitted into. It's some battle harness. It makes him OP though, but he is also utterly doomed, teetering in and out of sanity, with only the last of his meds and Rebecca keeping him sane.
Yeah.
Gearing
Rebecca,
up,
my
they all go on
beloved.
a suicide mission to rescue Lucy, and then nothing goes well. David, despite blurring between past and present, is able to get to Lucy, who is able to anchor him back to reality, returning to the moon night sky that illuminated all the significant moments of their life together. We get one cathartic but sad reunion, where David admits to his flaws in following other people's dreams, but is happy to still have a chance to make Lucy's come true, with Lucy bitterly saying that she never wanted any of this to happen, and that David was the one thing that she's been trying to save all this time. It's bittersweet, and made even more heartbreaking as we know, David, he's fucked. As if going crazy wasn't enough, the presence of Atom Smasher, who is the answer to the question, what if Darth Vader had a baby with the Terminator, is coming to kill them. In a city of cyborgs, Atom Smasher is a man who has been completely converted into a killing machine, the boogeyman of Night City, and David has zero chances of defeating him. But he is able to distract him just long enough to buy Lucy time to escape, with his final moments feeling triumphant and content that he could save Lucy even at the cost of his own life. Something I love about Atom Smasher being the one to finish off David is that Adam is the dark mirror for David's character after the time skip. Just like David, Atom Smasher was a hired gun with no personal goals, only following the commands and dreams of others. While David only pretends at being special, Adam truly is. Completely immune to cyberpsychosis, or so far gone that he's come back out sane, Adam is able to take implant.
That's an interesting idea, that he's, like, gone through the cyberpsychosis and somehow survived it. Oh, I like that take on it. That's really interesting. That's really cool.
After implant, till there was basically nothing left of his original organic self. Atom Smasher represents the tragic endpoint of what David could have become. A true legend of Night City, but one still beholden to the corporations. Just another high-paid pawn in someone else's game, with his skills being abused by those around him. The personal connections that David craved being lost along the way, till he was just alone at the top. So at the end, for David to reject this life, to reject becoming like Atom Smasher and saving Lucy, he was able to save himself. Lucy, though.
Lucy.
Yeah,
I was so scared.
Going down to a blaze of glory is all nice and all, but everyone else has to keep on going. Lucy.
I was so scared that she was gonna pull an Arnold here on the moon and take off her helmet. I was terrified.
Made it to the moon, her grand escape, freedom from NC, Arasaka, the corporations, and it's just this. A tourist trap for the rich to dance around on. She finally achieved her dream, and it was empty. No closure, no paradise, just quiet. She goes to the same places she and David went in the simulation, where she sees just brief glimpses of David before it just fades away. I love tragedies. I love how they stick with me long after I finish them. Happy endings are great, but the sense of closure makes it easy to just put them back on the shelf and not really think about them ever again. Tragic stories though, it hurts, but that's what makes them linger. Makes you go back and wonder how things could have gone differently. What choices could characters have made that could have prevented this? But more than anything else, a tragic ending highlights the good moments, making them even more meaningful. Everything is enhanced by this bittersweet love for what was and what could have been. And this to me is the true secret of Lucy and David's relationship. You can look at the show and see it as Lucy remembering her time with David, of first love, getting together, and when it all came crashing down. We see the relationship as almost all highlights and low points, as these were the times that truly stick with her after the end. And these are the moments that stick with us. Lucy originally just dreamed of having a place to escape to, where she wouldn't have to run anymore. But meeting David changed that. She wanted to be here with him. But now, it's just her. So the only question left for her and us to ask, was it worth it?
I think she decided it was. Like that's what I interpreted, like when her, like, she, like, smiling up at the sun at the end there, like, kind of as a decision to, like, keep going forward, you know, to find something new. I think she would have decided it was worth it in the end. And again, she's young. She could find a new dude, right? She could find a new love, a new dream, all of that. Like, there's hope for her, which is one of the things I liked about the ending, because, like, it ends on, like, all of her friends are dead. But, you know, she's still looking towards the light, you know?
Fuck yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was. I agree that it was worth it. And I like that, you know, it's that idea too of, you know, you can't have good times without bad times. Like, that shows up over and over and over again. Where, you know, I feel like there's, like, a really cool scene in one of the Doctor Who Christmas specials that, like, he's explaining to the lady, I think it's the one where they go, I don't know, I think it's the one where it's, like, set in World War II times. But he, like, explains to her that's, like, just because there are bad times, you know, it doesn't make the good times less good or less important. Like, you can see them more clearly even for having bad times. And I think, like, and there's an episode of freaking Supernatural where they have the same discussion where Castiel, I think, is trying to tell Dean, it's like, but it's going to be paradise, and Dean's like, but if you don't have anything bad ever happen, then, like, you don't, like, there's nothing good that can happen either. Like, it's just what it is. There's no way to, like, appreciate what's good if there's not also some bad stuff going on. And that's always been interesting to me in fiction, because it's like, if everything is always good all the time, there's no comparison, you know, like, there's no way to know it's good, right? I don't know. I just feel like it's always interesting when that particular question comes up in fiction. Like, are the bad times worth it? Because, like, in real life, you're like, no, I don't want there to be bad times. But then they make you think about it. It's like, if none of those bad things happen to you ever, would you still be the same person? And, like, who would you be, you know? And that's a good question too. It's like, I would be somebody totally different if nothing bad had ever happened to me, and I don't know that I would be an interesting person. I don't know. It's a weird philosophical debate that we're not going to get into on this video. But I mean, feel free to put your comments below. What do you think? I think that it does make sense that bad things need to happen sometimes. I mean, in order to appreciate the good things, but also that's horrible. Like, it's also bad, because I feel like it's a bad, like, ugh, God, it's so complicated, and I don't know. I don't know if there's not a right answer, or if there is a right answer. I'm not sure. So, like, what do you think? Do you think it's just part of being alive that bad things need to happen? Or do you think that that is all nonsense and, you know, I mean, things would... Like I said, it's a philosophical discussion that I refuse to get into right now because I just do not know the answer and I can't figure it out. I won't figure it out in the 20-minute YouTube video. So thank you for watching. I do hope you enjoyed. It was nice to revisit Cyberpunk, which was my first anime that I watched on this channel. And like my 4th ever overall. So thank you so much for watching. If you want to see more Cyberpunk stuff, go ahead and let me know in the comments below. And I will see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.